The Pet Shop Boys. Always on my mind. We obviously weren't on his mind because he couldn't even show up on time. Cloonan, how are you?
I am fantastic. And just to be very clear, you know the way you normally always come to me late and I stand outside like a spare, whatever you call it, standing outside waiting for you to finish your interview, and I'm standing there waiting because you're running late. So when you run early, you can't expect me to turn up early, in fairness.
It was 20 past. 20 past on the nose.
By the way, I got a bit of a shock this morning. I couldn't believe when somebody said to me in the coffee shop this morning, Debbie Harry of Blondie is 81.
No way.
Isn't that incredible? Now, I know I'm a little bit older than you, but, you know, when one of these people that you fancied as a young lad, you know, that you thought was just a few years older than you, and then it turns out, you know, 81. Incredible.
Yeah. Well, you fancy Cleopatra.
She is portrayed as a very sexy lady, in fairness.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start with the DIY questions. First one. Paint flaking off my outside wall and there's a white powdery substance underneath. We had this one not so long ago.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, we'll get this in the shop. We'll get this every second day at the moment, and every paint shop in the country will. So the big thing is just you're trying to stop the paint flaking in the future. So it's either a water-based primer, thinned out to make sure it goes into the wall. So what you do is don't power wash it off. Get a stiff brush, like a nylon brush or even a wire brush. Brush off all that white flaky stuff, and then use a primer. So either they call stabilizing primer, which is a clear, very thin primer, and you'll be giving it 2 coats, always using a brush because you want to work it into the surface and then paint over it in the normal way. And 9 times out of 10, that will take care of the problem, unless it's rising damp coming up the wall, which is a bigger problem. But even that, and if that, the other thing I'd say is if you try to use one of the paints that allow a certain amount of moisture to leave without flaking, so the likes of Santex, so any of the micro porous masonry paints that will allow a certain amount of moisture to leave without flaking off the paint, that would probably benefit for you there as well.
Next caller says a couple of the door handles on their kitchen units are broken. Most of them are quite scratched, so there are 28 in total, which would be very expensive to replace. Can they be painted? Now, bearing in mind they're going to be handled on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's not really that successful, to be quite honest. So, look, they don't have to be that expensive. And I'll tell you what's very practical, and they're only €3 or €4, are the porcelain knobs, because they're very practical in that they don't get scratched, they don't get marked, they cost very little. And they come in a whole range of colours, so you can, you know, black, white, cream, whatever. And because they're not expensive, and if you're replacing whatever's there, a lot of kitchen units would have little dangly bits that come off, and they get broken off. So don't try and replace them with that has a loose hinged handle on it, because that's what tends to get broken. So whatever you go for, be it a little handle, a little knob, whatever it is, try to avoid bits that move, because bits that move get broken. But painting in a busy kitchen is not going to be that successful, to be frank. Now look, what you could do is take them all off and get a tin of spray paint and spray them with whatever colour spray paint you want to spray them with, and then spray a clear lacquer over it. So a couple of tins of spray, one coloured, one clear, probably cost you about 20 quid. Line them all up outside on the best way really is to use the little, get a piece of cardboard and fix the handle to the cardboard using the little screw at the back, and then you can spray very cleanly the entire handle, and then spray the clear lacquer over it. It'll last a while. It'll last. Depends how much use the kitchen gets. You know, some kitchens get very little use, some kitchens get a huge amount of use. How many people are in the house, how many people are cooking, how much does it get used? So you're looking at 20 quid for argument's sake for that, and your time. Now, and your satisfaction, because it will look well. Give a bit of thought to what colour you're going to do it, and it will look well. And then you look at say 28 by 3, and then do the maths. Just try and work out what makes more sense for your kitchen.
Okay, next. By the way, 083 30 10 103, text and WhatsApp as well, powered by Lamb Brothers Toyota in Tullamore. Josie has scorch marks on a carpet, and she says this is because of timber which sparked in the fire, and those sparks came out and landed on my creamy beige carpet.
No.
So now these black marks really stand out. Is there anything she can do?
Well, really the best thing to do there is the black. You want to just remove the black and make it less noticeable. So the best thing is get a Bohemian blade scraper, which you might have already if you have a ceramic hob. So a Bohemian blade scraper is a razor blade. It's razor sharp, and it was traditionally used for shaving, and so men would use it for shaving. So, and in this particular case, what you're going to do is you're going to shave away the black. So you turn on the hoover, have the nozzle of the hoover beside you, shave, hoover, shave, hoover, shave, hoover. You're just dragging it along the top of the surface. You're only going to be taking off, half a millimetre at a time. So at the end of doing this, you will end up with a lower pile on that area of the carpet. But I guarantee you, a lower pile on a small area will be less noticeable than a black scorch mark on a cream carpet. So this is one of these things, if you went looking for this lower area, you'll spot it. But nobody in the house is going to say, oh God, there's a little patch there that's lower than the rest. That won't really get noticed at all, because it won't scream at you the way the black mark will. And that is definitely the best way to do it. And then look into getting some type of a mat that is flame resistant, flame retardant, that if it happens again, that the sparks won't come out and mark the carpet.
Brian, stay there for a moment. Lots of questions to get through between now and 11. Let me know what yours is by picking up that phone and calling 0818 300 103. Also, a little bit later, what to expect as Ireland takes over the EU presidency from today. And a doctor admits to dangerous driving, causing the death of his little daughter in County Westmeath.
With Brian Cloonan, call 0818 300 103 and put our toolman to the test.
Yes, indeed. Brian Cloonan is here from Cloonan's Hardware in Tullamore. And if you wish to pick his brain, well, good luck finding it. First off, James has 2 cast iron radiators, which he picked up in a salvage yard, and he was hoping to paint and to put in the hall, but he says they're very rusty. So he's wondering what is the best way to treat them, given that the intention is to paint them black.
Well, I suppose we'll give you the very best thing to do first, which would be to get them sandblasted. So there are various people who do sandblasting, including, people don't think of them, the people who do headstones will do sandblasting. So if you use someone who did headstones, you can drop it to them and get it sandblasted. And then immediately after sandblasting, so the same day, not on a wet day, they can't afford to be put out in the rain after sandblasting, you would spray them with a rust primer. So alternatively, the fact that they're going to be inside, if you do treat them successfully, they're not going to get wet inside in the house. So what I would say to you is, there are various different brands and varieties out there, but get a rust preventer neutralizer. So that would be a thing, and you can do this outside. It's a very mild acid, so do be careful where you wash it off. You brush this on or spray it on to the entire radiator, leave it for a few hours. When you come back in a few hours, you'll see where all the rust is now neutralised. Now, I should have said, if there's flaking rust, you need to get a wire brush and take off all the flaking rust. And then, in this case, what you will be doing is put on the rust neutralizer preventer and brush it on, leave it for a couple of hours, and then hose it off. And then carry them inside. These are heavy. These are cast iron radiators. It'll be a 2-person lift, but carry them inside, out of the elements, even the moisture in the air outside wouldn't be great for it. But now you've neutralised it, and then you're going to get a spray paint I would suggest, because it's black, you don't need to really use a heat-resistant one, but I'd suggest get a heat-resistant one just to be on the safe side, and spray paint them black, and they will look fantastic. And I don't think you need to go to the trouble of getting them sandblasted. It would mean they will look brand new, but you know, they're old cast iron radiators. I presume the house is kind of vintagey style if you're going for old cast iron radiators. You don't want them to look absolutely brand new. You want them to have a little bit of character, and they will look almost new, which really is the ideal situation in a situation like that. So, but always spray them at least 2 coats. You might think it looks fine after 1 coat. Spray the second coat. So at least 2 coats to get a nice finish on them, and that it won't rub off too easily. If it does get a mark or a knock or whatever, if there's a couple of coats there, it will withstand the abuse they might get better.
Do you withstand the abuse you get rather well?
I do. Well, I get and give a lot of abuse. So when you give as much abuse as I do, you have to be able to withstand that abuse, yeah.
Jim is our next caller, who has a wedding anniversary coming up next month. Brownie points and bonus points already for remembering. Thank heavens for, ChatGPT, Google Calendar, Facebook. Yeah. Anyway, if the weather is fine on the day, the decking is a great place for a gathering, and it definitely needs a bit of TLC. So he's got plenty of time and wants to freshen it up. How to?
Well, I suppose because he has the time, I'd suggest give it a power washing. Just a gentle power washing. Everything, see, all those grooves get filled up with dirt. So if you give it a power washing, everything that's going to likely to come off will come off now with a gentle power washing. Now remember, you have to leave it about a week after power washing so that it dries out completely. And then, if the conditions are with you, use an oil-based wood preservative. Any of the oil-based exterior wood preservatives, not the ones that are designed for building, because the colour that's in that is just literally to let you know where you used it, and it will fade away very quickly. So Sadlin, Cuprinol, but just you have to ask all these people, Sadlin, Cuprinol, all of those people do a whole range of products. So, if you're buying a 5 litre container or something for 10 or 12 euro, you can be guaranteed it's basically coloured water. It's fine for a job, but it won't last. But you will bitterly regret it if you put it on decking. So what you want now is just ask the question, say, I want an oil-based wood preservative that will hold its colour quite well. So, as I say, they all, Crown, Sadlin, Cuprinol, I'm running out of names, they all do them. So just get one in a colour that you like and brush it on, and it will soak in. There's no skill set involved. You could actually use a sweeping brush, a soft bristled sweeping brush to apply it, and you'll do it quite quickly. Alternatively, if the weather went against you, and hopefully it doesn't, if you get power washing today, you could find that by next week, middle of next week, and we're supposed to be getting good weather, it's ready to be treated. But if things went against you, well, then you could use something like the Sadlin Wetwood, which will actually apply to wet timber. But my first preference always would be oil-based preservative. And the whole thing here is not to use a paint. Don't try to avoid anything that's called a paint, because even if it says decking paint, the problem with it is it sits on the surface, and anything that sits on the surface outside, particularly in a flat surface, will eventually start to flake, whether it's from wear, whether it's from some part of the timber. There could be a slope on the timber and it could be particularly wet, it'll end up flaking. Whereas if it soaks right down into the timber, it will never flake, ever. It'll eventually just fade down. But when you go to redo it in a few years' time, you're just literally reapplying. You're not going out with a sander and trying to sand off flaky paint. And also, more importantly, you're not putting an extra coat of paint on top of a coat of paint that might be already struggling to stick to the timber. Because often what will happen is somebody will have, say, a bit of flaking paint over, we'll say, 15% of the deck, and then they paint over it with everything with new paint, and suddenly within 6 months 60% of the deck's flaking because the original coat of paint was already struggling to hold on to stick to the timber, and now the extra weight, the extra pressure of the new paint has put it under more pressure, and it flakes off even more quickly.
All righty. Our next listener, I don't know if this is actually for us, Brian.
Okay.
I think this may have been a mistake because it comes from Bridget Quinlan in Boris and Ossory, and she says, "Can you ask your expert?"
Thanks, Will.
So she says, "I have wasps going into the roof just outside the back door. So obviously there's a risk of getting stung. How does she get rid of them from there?"
Yeah, sure. Look, we always say if you have wasps that don't cause you a problem, leave them alone. We've had a wasp nest in the attic for years, and we've been fortunate it hasn't caused us any problems. And they do eat. For you that is quick on the phone there, Google how many green fly a wasp eats in a day, and it's quite incredible. But having said that, if they're at the back door, particularly if there's kids involved or even pets, they can cause, and adults, they can cause major problems. So if you can see where the wasp is going in and out, so people will often come into us and they'll want something to take care of a wasp nest, but they can't see the nest, and they think that means they can't treat it, but they can. I mean, if you can see the nest, if the actual piece of paper is what it looks like, it's chewed timber and regurgitated, and they manufacture a nest from rotting timber that they chew, or vegetation that they chew. But if you can see the nest, there is a wasp nest spray that you can get that will work. But 9 times out of 10, you can just simply see where they're going out through a hole in the wall, a hole in a vent, a pipe, something like that. And you see, people think that the wasp's nest will be just inside that hole. It could be 10 feet away. They could go into that little hole and up into the attic, and they could be quite a long distance away from where the hole is. But if the nests are all passing through, if the wasps are all passing through a particular hole, a particular area, a particular gap, you simply get the wasp nest powder, and you puff that powder into that hole 3 nights in a row, ideally after dark, because then they're not there, they're all in the nest. And then when they come out tomorrow morning, they'll be passing through this gap that you've just coated with powder, and they'll bring it back and forth into the nest, and you will wipe out the entire nest doing that.
By the way, 200 to 400 green fly
Wow.
is how many they will eat in a day.
Okay,
So
well,
if you've got a nest, that's thousands.
Let's say approximately 300, yes.
Well, you never know. They could be on their diets.
They could be like Will Faulkner. They could be particularly hungry.
That's true too. Stay there for a moment, Brian. Lots more to get through and lots of questions. But also in the next hour, the European Union presidency has now come to Ireland. Not for the first time, but obviously in a very different world than during the Bertie Ahern era, and the largest security operation in the history of the state now underway for the next 6 months. Anyway, back to DIY after these.
Mr. Fixit is here to take on your DIY dilemmas. Text or WhatsApp to 083 3010 103.
Noel says, "Morning, girls. Our upstairs bathroom is made, the bath is made of fiberglass, and after a long investigation of where we had a leak, we've discovered there's a hairline crack in the bath. Now, it's a tight space, so there would be a huge amount of work to replace this bath. So is there a glue or a filler that will repair it, even though it's likely to keep expanding and contracting?"
Yeah, he's put his finger on it. That's the problem with a bath. It's amazing. You know, you put, I don't know how many litres a bath holds, but it's a lot. So you put the weight of, you put the weight of the water. If you think of a 5-gallon drum, a 25-litre drum of water, it's a heavy, heavy amount of water to try and lift. And then there's probably 3 times or 4 times that amount in the bath. That's a big weight. And then you put, the likes of yourself, a substantial human being, in on top of the weight of that water. That's a lot of pressure. That's a huge amount of pressure on the bath. And then the problem is it's hot water. So, of course, the hot water expands everything as well. So it's a perfect storm for the hairline crack, because it'll probably be almost invisible when the bath is empty. But as soon as you put all that pressure of weight and hot water, which is going to open up the crack a little bit, that's when the water will come out. So, and of course, he's quite right in that if you try to remove a bath, you will definitely break tiles. And then the problem is you're probably retiling the whole bathroom, because you go and try, unless you've kept some spare tiles, and that's, I'd always recommend people, if they're doing work in a bathroom, always keep some spare tiles, because when you go back to try and buy tiles that you bought 8-10 years ago, there's not a chance of you getting them. It's like going into a men's shop today to say, I tell you, I bought a nice shirt here 11 years ago and I'm looking for another one the same. You're just not going to get it. It's the same with the tiles. Styles change.
You are supposed to change your shirts more often, though.
Have you seen my shirt? Look, I'm wearing this for years. I've seen
I
your
can smell
shirts.
you from here.
At least I ironed my shirts. The state, that was a nice shirt when you got it, but you really should try running the iron over it. Speaking of which, just when I think of it, I believe you've an anniversary this month. The caller earlier had an anniversary. How many years are you married this month?
15.
Ah, well done. I just wanted to see that you know. Could you do the math?
You tested me there? Yeah. There was a frantic panic in my mind.
There was just a hesitation there for a minute. I'll tell you, that woman should have been sainted at the same time as Mother Teresa. She'd be out of good behaviour now if she had done time for murder. So anyway, go back to Noel in the bath. So
she might yet, by the way.
Yes, she might yet, yes. And I don't think anyone would blame her, I have to be honest with you. If you can get to the underside of the bath, just go to your local motor factors and get a tin of Isopon. I think there's P38 and P40. I think the P40 is the one with the fiberglass in it. So P38 is just like a polyfiller, but it's a 2-pack polyfiller. P40 has a lot more body to it. It has this fiberglass to it, which makes it extra strong for something like this. And you would just mix it up and apply it underneath the bath where the hole is. Hopefully you can see it from in underneath, and hopefully you can get access to it from in underneath. That's why when people put a bath panel on the front of the bath, you shouldn't glue it on. You should always screw it on, so that if you do need to get at the pipework, at the waste, in this case a crack in the bath, you can get in underneath and put on this paste. Now, if for any reason you can't get to the in underneath, well, then what you would do is get some 2-pack resin and put it over the crack. Now, what I'd suggest you do is you'd get some tape and tape around the crack, a little bit bigger than the crack itself. Put on the 2-packs resin, leave it to set. That'll be a clear resin. It will probably be fine, but you need to keep an eye on it. You'll be sure with the Isopon, because you can put a good thick piece of Isopon in underneath where it won't be seen. It can be very substantial lump, and it's designed for filling car bodies. So the same thing applies. You have the frost, the sun, the movement, all of that going on with the bodywork of a car that you have with the bath. So it will be well able to take it. And if the hairline crack was, say, for argument's sake, 2 inches long, you're going to, by very thin obviously, you're going to put about 3 inches of fiberglass P40, the filler, all over this, on top of it, and then it will stick so well to it. And always sand in the bath, because there's been a leak there could be, particularly if you have lime in the water, there could be a deposit of lime there. So you get a bit of sandpaper, sand it, apply the P48, and I think that'll be the end of the problem.
Lisa is in Glasson, and we brought the show to Glasson yesterday, had a lovely time. So she bought outdoor cushions last year and forgot to bring them in before the rain. They have dried out, but they smell like a forgotten towel from a gym bag. Can they be saved?
Not really, I'm afraid. Now, the problem is that it's probably the filler inside that is smelly. And we all know a damp smell, which when when somebody says a damp smell, it normally means a mouldy smell. Because obviously something that's damp just means it's slightly wet. And slightly wet doesn't smell, but it's gone mouldy. And to be honest with you...
Well, hang on. Have you smelled wet dog?
Yeah, that's not a damp smell. Well, I suppose, yeah, okay. It's a wet... Well, that's a wet dog smell. That's different. I got it this morning when I came into the studio, to be honest with you. I thought it was just, you'd just got a shower rain.
Come on, answer the question.
So I would say it's probably not going to work. I mean, what you could do is take off the covers, put them in the hottest wash that the cushion covers are allowed, that recommend to put them on, which is probably only going to be about 40 degrees. You could put a little bit of Milton in the washing machine, unless they're very dark colours, and that will definitely help. And then you could wash the actual cushions themselves, doing the very same thing. Just do it separately. You might be able to go a little bit hotter with the cushions inside. So most of these cushions are removable. The covers are removable. So unzip them, put them in. Don't go too hot with the actual cover. And then again, when you're washing the cushions themselves, just a little bit of Milton in the machine, in the drum before you start. Give them a wash, bring them outside, hang them out. Make sure you fluff them up so that they are in the correct shape as they're drying, and then hope for the best.
Next is Tom in Abbeyleix, who planted a climbing rose beside a trellis, and the rose is growing brilliantly. Trellis, however, seems to be losing the battle. Is there a way to strengthen it without taking the whole thing down?
Probably the best thing to do is, so if you went to the Botanical Gardens, which I went there last year and I really enjoyed it now, I have to say, you would see that every climbing plant is held, they train it to wires. So rather than a piece of trellis, which will rot in the fullness of time, they train it to climbing wires. So all you simply do is, let's say you want to cover a wall with a climbing plant, and you're going to do, the wall is 12 foot wide and you'd like to cover the entire wall. What you would do is you would get a few roll plugs and screw eyes, and you'd go to one end of the wall and you might put 3 screw eyes a foot apart, or 2 foot apart on one side, then go to the far end of the wall, do the very same thing, and then you run either a plastic coated wire or a fine stranded wire. It's really important it's stranded. So it's not just ordinary galvanized wire, which is a single strand. When it's stranded, it's actually much easier to work with because it's more flexible, but it's also much stronger. That stranding, the braiding, makes it very strong. And you just run that wire, say from the bottom left across to the bottom right on the far side, up one hook, back over to the left, back up one more, and then over to the right. And you do that over on top of the trellis. So that will keep the trellis in place, but also the plant now will grow to the wire rather than just to the trellis. So it's supporting the weight of the plant, and it's also keeping the trellis. Because the problem is, a lot of the time people will put trellis on a wall, so they've, say, painted the wall white and they put a nice attractive brown trellis on it, but sometimes then what happens is, when the trellis comes away, you can see where the trellis was on the wall because it's a different colour. It has been protected from the sun and the rain, and it'll look a different colour. So that's why you're trying to keep the trellis there as long as you can.
Brian, our time is up, I'm afraid, but thanks very much for joining us. We'll chat again next week.
Thanks very much, Will. Bye.
News is on the way at 11. Then David Hollywood looks at the EU presidency and also a really upsetting court case.